Hello, Toyzilla! It's your dastardly, dashing voice of Toyzilla Live and hashtag Bayesian, Mr. Kapow, aka Michael Pow, and by my side, as always, is my buddy, my friend, my compadre, the pop mayor of Toyzilla David!
Hey guys! Oh man, I'm so excited to be here with Larry Brantley. Oh wait, no, that's a poster of Larry. Sorry, but the real Larry's over there. Trust me, trust me. I just want to give you a little intro first, show you where we are, what's going on here. We are at the amazing Odyssey Games here in Pasadena. You're welcome to come out right now. We have a little event going on today with Anime Pop-Up with Larry and some amazing voice actors here. So here, let's check it out. There are, spinner pops you can buy here with the Toyzilla sticker that you can get signed right now with Larry after we do this interview. Here are some of his glossies. He is Spinner from My Hero Academia. He's in One Piece. Of course, you might know him as Wishbone.
Yeah.
From Wishbone.
That's my childhood right there.
Yeah, so here, let's not waste any time. I'm going to take you over to him right now. Just come on down if you're in the area. This is an awesome venue for tabletop gaming. There's a magic event go on later today. There's Star Wars, the RPG. There's a lot of really cool, fun stuff. And we're up here. Man, I don't know. I feel like, what does this look like to you? It's a magnifying glass, right?
And it's a skylight. It's a skylight.
It's a skylight. It's like Doctor Strange's house.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Sanctum Sanctorum.
Right. Oh, and here we are with the man himself. Let's get this right here.
All right. Hey, guys.
Perfectly.
Hey, Larry. What's up?
Hey, Michael. How you doing, buddy?
Doing good. Doing good. Thank you for taking some time to join us for an interview.
Happy to do it. Thank you very much. And I just got to make sure that David gets his Ritalin, so we're good.
Yep. I'm just gonna warn you right now. I'm gonna be a little flustered. I'm a little nervous with this one because I will say this: you are like one of the voices of my childhood, right there.
Man, thank you very much. I really appreciate that. That's very sweet.
Yeah, you're one of the reasons that I fell in love with reading, and I'm continuing to read.
I'm really glad to hear that, man. That was kind of the whole point of the show. Mm-hmm. So we had no idea when we started back in, 1994, that we were going to have the kind of lasting impact that we did. But I'm still good friends to this day with the creators of the show, Rick Duffield, Betty Buckley, our ADs, Joey Stewart, all of our great directors, cast and crew. So I'll absolutely let them know that I met Mike in California, and he's a big fan of the show. They'll get a kick out.
Well, before I just jump into things, you know what? I'm just going to mix up some of the questions here that I have prepared because, well, why not, But, you know how everything's getting rebooted and there's going to be, like continuations from, stuff from our nostalgia past? You ever think that you want to slip into the voice of Wishbone once again?
It's funny that you say that. I saw an announcement, must have been last year, possibly the year before, from Mattel and Universal, that they had signed a development deal for a Wishbone feature film.
Oh!
Now, they used a word that in this industry is sort of a code word, and the word that they used in the announcement was reimagining. So whenever they say it's a reimagining of the children's classic, that usually means it's not going to look or sound anything like the original. I know they haven't reached out to me, so who knows what it's going to be. Of course, I think at this time they've got Mattel's got 9 feature films in development. None of them have ever happened. I will say, however, that all of us who worked on the show are very aware that that the love of that is still there, and especially the nostalgia thing. So we're actually working right now on creating a Wishbone documentary film.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, so it's all of us who originally worked on the show. We came up with the idea. And it's definitely a labor of love. It's taking a long time, but hopefully in the next couple of years, we'll be able to put it out somewhere so that not only people who, like you, enjoyed the show can see sort of how the sausage was made, but people who maybe never heard of the show can get an idea of what we were trying to do at that time. And, you know, the truth is, man, we were all super young and didn't have a clue. We were all in Texas, and we were like, when they said yes, we were all really surprised. We're like, oh, really? We're going to do this? What do we do? How do we do it? You know? So we kind of figured it out as we went along. And honestly, it was the show that, of course, launched my voice career. And it was the best experience because it was literally, you know, having to learn on the job. And I just think there's no better education.
I mean, you're definitely part of, you know, the cultural zeitgeist. You know, you're definitely a part of a lot of people's childhood, and I am hoping that, you know, reimagining of Wishbone comes to fruition with you returning as the voice of Wishbone, and also really excited to see that doc when that does come out.
I'll let you know as soon as we get it in the can. I will let you know, my friend.
Awesome. Well, one of the things that we usually start off with our guests is asking their origin story. Like, how did you get your start in voice act? How did you get? Because you already said you got your launch with Wishbone, but how did you get into the whole voice acting industry?
Yeah, so going back to childhood, my dad was in the Army, and we moved around a lot. And I was a kid who was pretty not very self-confident. I was small as a kid, and I learned really quickly that if I could make people laugh, then I could get people to like me. The other thing that I learned is I learned really quickly wherever we moved, I learned how to quickly sound like the people who were there and I lived around, right? So I started quite by accident. I discovered that I had a mimic's ear, and so it was not difficult for me. As many people play music by ear, I could sort of do the same thing, but with accent and dialect and lexicon and jargon. And so I've always been fascinated by language and communication, verbal communication in particular. So I just took cues from everybody really quickly and started to sound like they did. And when I did, it was like I fit in and it was going to be okay. I wasn't the outsider. Now, as I got older, sometimes being the outsider was kind of cool, right? Because if you're living in middle America, you know, like in the Midwest, and you put your drawl on because people realize you're from Texas, and you know, it's kind of cool because it's like people don't talk like that around here. So I that's just sort of what started it. At some point, I thought there maybe I kind of wanted to be an actor, you know. When I moved to Dallas in 1993, I was doing a lot of on-camera stuff. I didn't know what voice acting was. I just knew that I sort of possessed. It was my ability to mimic people was more of a party trick at that point than anything else. But one day, my agent called me and said, "I'm sending you on a voice audition." And I said, "Great, what's a voice audition?" And she said, "Well, you're not in front of the camera, you're behind a microphone." And so I think it was for a Pepsi commercial. It was some, you know, young, hip, teenage dude kind of thing, and put on like a little bit of Surfer, you know, that kind of thing. And the folks at Pepsi dug it, and so that's what we did. And that was my first casting as a voice actor. And literally, it was about 3 months later that my agent called and said, "Hey, there's this kids television show in development, and you're going to go audition for it." And so I did, and I had no idea when I did that audition that it was going to launch a career that's now gone, you know, 30 plus years.
Okay. I'm curious. So, when you have to come up with a voice for a particular role, such as, well, Wishbone or Spinner from My Hero Academia, is there some sort of like process, or how do you discover the character's voice? Because we know with projects such as anime, you might have, you know, watch the original and try to, you know, ballpark that around that. But characters like Wishbone, which is original creations, how do you come up with voices for characters like that?
Yeah, it's interesting. I think it's different for every project. When it came to Wishbone, the voice sort of found me. What I wanted to do in creating something original was I wanted to get the character right first. Mm-hmm. So I wasn't thinking about what does this dog's voice sound like. I was really thinking, what is his personality? What is his character? And he's a Jack Russell Terrier, so he's excited a lot of the time. And so the impetus for what became Wishbone's voice actually started with me just trying to suss out what his personality was and how he would react in a given situation. A couple of years after the show started running, I actually got real solid validation from a voice actor that I looked up to at the time and still do, a guy named Dan Castellaneta, who's the voice of Homer Simpson and a lot of other voices on The Simpsons. I happened to meet him at a place called the Upfront Comedy Club in Santa Monica, California, on a Thursday night. And I think I was wearing my Wishbone crew jacket. He mentioned something about it. And I said, yeah. We started a conversation. And I asked him the same question. I said, how'd you come up with a voice for Homer Simpson? And he said, honestly, when they first started doing the shorts, the Simpson shorts in the 80s on the Tracy Ullman show, he actually patterned Homer after the actor Walter Matthau. And he said, if you listen to the first 1 or 2 seasons of the show, you can clearly hear that he's sort of paying homage to Walter Matthau. But he goes, but the writing was so good on that show that the character started to come into its own, right? And his voice started to go up a little bit, and then it became the voice, the voice of Homer Simpson that we all know and love. So when he told me that, I felt kind of validated, because that's really how I started with the voice of Wishbone. With anime, you're absolutely correct. It's a bit of a different story because that product comes to you completed. And so there is a process by which I do listen to the original dub in Japanese to get a sense of context, of emotional context for the scene. But then, of course, there are language barriers that our writers into English have to cross, because some concepts don't easily translate, right? So what they have to do is figure out how to take that emotional context, bring it over into English, and then find the words for guys like me to say to convey that in a scene. And that is a little different. I will say that the voice of Spinner, for example, sort of came about because that particular day, my voice was just a little raspy. And I didn't plan on doing it that way, but it's how it came out. But it was a little younger, right? And so it seemed to work. It seemed to work with the emotional context that the character was in, worked with the scenes, and so it just started to develop from there. I will say, and I don't know if this is I don't know what kind of a statement this is on me personally, but it seems like every character in anime I've ever played is a bad guy to one degree or another. But I will say that they're a lot more fun to play.
Bad guys are fun. Bad guys are a lot of fun to play. So out of all the roles that you have done, do you have a favorite line that you've gotten to deliver, something that still kind of sticks with you?
Oh, gosh. Gosh, that's really hard. I think it probably goes back to Wishbone, and the reason for that is I love all the anime characters I've gotten to perform over the years, but those are sort of they're not my creations. I'm merely a craftsman trying to faithfully recreate something that someone else did into another language. With Wishbone, everything was new, everything was original, and sometimes the stuff worked and sometimes the stuff didn't. I'll never forget the first time I saw Soccer, and that was Wishbone's actual name, was Soccer the dog. I'll never forget the first time I saw him do a backflip. This was during the audition process when I had just met the dog. And apropos of nothing, he just did a backflip. And when he did, I instinctively made a sound. And it was like, whatcha, something like that. And it stuck. And so then it became a thing where, like, in almost every episode, we had to have a Wishbone backflip where he was going, whatcha, And then not a lot of times, many times on the show, the dog would do something on camera that was cinematically, it was great. Like it was a great look or a great move or a great pause, but it wasn't in the script. And so we would have to come up with some sort of vocalization for that. Those were some of the most fun moments because then I really got to play. And all of the guys who ever directed that show and our producers, Rick Duffield, Betty Buckley, our head writer, Stephanie Simpson, they were really encouraging and allowed me to stretch my very young wings at the time and try and not be afraid to try stuff creatively. So those are the moments that are the most memorable for me personally as a voice actor, was the stuff that I got to create and do. All of the characters in anime that I've done have their own great lines, and I know these lines because every time I sign Funko Pop, I usually have to put one on there.
That's awesome. That's awesome. We know that back in the day, a lot of voice acting was actually done at the studio in a booth and everything. But now these days, a lot of people have their own kind of setup at home, and they're able, especially during the pandemic, they're able to do voice work from home. Uh, Curious, do you prefer working alone in the booth? Do you prefer working actually at a booth in the studio, or do you prefer working at more of a setup like at home or something?
That's a really good question. I never had the experience of working at home until the pandemic. And I will tell you that I did not like it.
Oh.
Now, Crunchyroll was great because they were like, hey guys, we got to keep going. They sent us all the equipment we needed to set up a home studio. And then they would dial in remotely. But what I discovered was having to be my own sound engineer was really bad for my performance. Like I really was not happy with anything that I did. And fortunately, I didn't have to do it very long because those guys are so great over there. I was just real honest with them because I am probably one of the older voice actors working in anime today. And it doesn't bother me to say that out loud. So I speak my mind frequently. I just tell people how I feel. I've been doing this for a long time. And I told them, I said, I cannot do this, you guys. It's so hard. I know my performance is suffering. Is there any way that I can get into the studio? And they've been over backwards to accommodate. So it was strange because I remember going to the studios during COVID and I would walk in and the only other person in that building was a security guard who would open the front door and let me in. I knew what studio I had to go to. I'd walk in. There was no engineer sitting at the board. There was no director. I walked in, I put on my headphones, the engineer and the director were coming in remotely, and I'd have two screens where I've got my script here and I've got the visual here. But to be able to focus on my performance and not on all the technical stuff, which is an art all by itself, that was necessary for me. I know some guys, they can do it all, man. They literally learned how to use that software on their iPads, and they discovered that they like doing it more, and that's great. I'm old school. I prefer to collaborate with people, and I prefer to collaborate in person whenever it's possible. So now that Crunchyroll's back open, I love going into the studio, hanging out, chatting with my engineers, chatting with my directors, guys like Jeremy Inman and Chris George, Colleen. It's just so much better for me personally. Voice acting is still a lonely job because at the end of the day, you are in a studio, whether you're at home or whether you're in the booth at the place. It is kind of a lonely, but the immediate feedback that I get, not just the verbal, but the nonverbal feedback that I get from my engineer and my director, to me, that stuff is priceless, and it makes me better at my job. So yeah, that's your answer.
You said that you enjoy working with other people in the booth if possible. I was wondering, do you have any kind of maybe a favorite story or an anecdote that you would like to share from the voice booth with a co-star or something?
I will say this of just about every session I've ever done of anime, it's always fun. I tend to bring levity everywhere that I go. That's not always appropriate. Don't ever bring levity to your Irish uncle's funeral. Lesson learned. but to be able to walk in and I've got, rapport with these guys, it's one of the things that I missed when I couldn't do it, is just being able to have the rapport. So so for the anime stuff, it really is just me and my director and my engineer, and you develop a certain level of trust there, where you all sort of get on the same page mentally, and before the director can tell me, I know I missed a word there or whatever, so I'll be like, okay, Patrick, back it up, let's do it again, whatever. That is really fun for me. Just that creative process is fun for me. I got lots of stories from the set of Wishbone, but I think one of my favorites, and it has nothing to do with me as a performer, but it has to do with the last day of shooting on the first season of the show. And our sound stages were in a big warehouse in Plano, Texas, completely unmarked. Nobody knew who we were, what we were doing. And so we had this big warehouse with 2 sound stages on it, just like they have out here in California. And in the middle was the commissary where everybody ate lunch. And our property manager, our props guy, Tom Rutherford, was a notorious practical joker. And on the last day of filming, unbeknownst to us, he and his entire crew had spent the entire night on giant ladders above the commissary where the rafters were, and they put boxes and boxes and boxes of ping pong balls. He maintains there were over 100,000 ping pong balls in these boxes. And while we were all sitting there having lunch, they all got dumped on us.
Wow.
And I mean, and it came out of nowhere. It was amazing. And we're all just looking around. And of course, not a single person wondered who was responsible. We all knew who was responsible. But then the more mischievous of us, and I include myself in that, we took it one step further, because our executive director, Rick Duffield, was not at lunch that day. He was off site. So a bunch of us scooped up ping pong balls and ran to his office. He had one of these giant sort of executive desks with a bunch of drawers, and we just stuffed them full of ping pong balls. And yeah, that he didn't think it was as funny as we did, but we thought it was pretty funny. So that I have very fond memories of working on that show.
I like that. I like that. I like that. Well, this is a question that we've kind of asked all our guests. If you have or would have in your voice actor's kit, what would be in it? Like maybe a favorite beverage, a favorite flavor of lozenge, whatever.
So yeah, I do keep I carry a ruck, a backpack around with me, and I do keep a few handy items in there. I do keep some throat lozenges. It's usually just like Ricola, honey, and lemon. There's some drops that I buy. I think it's called Voice 37. Voice 30 something. Anyway, it tastes terrible. It's some concoction of herbs and voodoo, but I will tell you that it's gotten me out of some pretty bad scrapes, particularly when I've done video game voiceover, because a lot of the video game voiceover that I do is heavy yelling and screaming, usually in some sort of an accent. So at the end of the day, it can be pretty rough. So I carry the lozenges, I carry the drops. I do drink coffee during most of my voiceover sessions because I like to keep my vocal cords warm. So I don't drink like cold water. A lot of times I'll just keep like a bottle of room temperature water next to my coffee, but I'm going for that coffee. So there's nothing special that I do. I think one of the reasons I've really never had problems with my voice is I don't worry too much about it. It's been my experience that your perception is your reality. So if you think you're going to lose your voice, you're going to lose your voice. And I've had people half my age who are in this business go, "How can you do that before a session? That's just terrible what you're doing." And I whatever it is, and I'm like, yeah, I'm not worried about it. I've been doing this for a long time. So until such time as, and also I'm not Geddy Lee. I'm not singing like that. I'm not, I'm not really in normal life. I'm not much of a talker. I get up for interviews and public appearances and stuff like that. But honestly, if you find me at home, my wife would die to get more than 20 words out of me. I'm usually just sitting on my patio enjoying a nice scotch, you know?
All right. We got some folks in chat. Want to say hi. We got Robbie Rocket Fingers posted love Wishbone. And oh, we also got a question actually in chat. Not chat. In one of the social medias I posted up. Stephanie W wants to know of all the stories that you've told on Wishbone, what is maybe a favorite?
It's a good question. In fact, someone right here in Odyssey Games asked me that just today, and I'll tell you my answer. So there was an episode of Wishbone that we did that was based on the satire of Moliere's Imaginary Invalid, and it was absurdist comedy. And I love satire and I love absurdism because you really get to go over the top. You don't have to be subtle when you're doing absurdist comedy. And the story revolves around, in the contemporary world, Joe Talbot, who was Wishbone's owner, has a friend, and this friend is a bit of a hypochondriac. And we discovered that he's a bit of a hypochondriac because his mother has basically led him to believe that he is allergic to everything. Everything is dangerous and tries to kill you. In the 90s, we did not have the term helicopter parent, but that is what this woman was. And so it reminds Wishbone of the main character from The Imaginary Invalid by Moliere, in which this very rich lord in France thinks he is dying. And so everyone is out to get his money, and his wife is trying to convince him that he is in fact dying because she hopes she'll actually die and whatever. And then finally it's his daughter who convinces him that it's all in his head and he just needs to get over himself. That episode garnered the only negative mail that we ever got. And I think it was one letter, but I can't remember the actual name of the episode. We all called it the lost episode because it literally aired one time on PBS and then they took it off the air. And they told us it was because the president of PBS, Irvin Duggan, got a letter from a woman who was very upset because she thought that we were making light of children's allergies and everything else. And Rick Duffield, our producer, wrote this woman back, said, I'm a lifelong allergy sufferer, that, the whole point is that these things can be overcome, and et cetera, et cetera. She wasn't having it. So they yanked the episode. But honestly, it was so much fun to do. You have to understand that the actors that we worked with, particularly the actors who were on all the fantasy sequences, the literature sequences, were these super talented, highly trained theater actors. And so for them to be able to go sort of off the chain like that in an absurdist comedy, we all loved it. I remember it was 5 days of shooting where we had so much fun and everybody was laughing all the time. There was one other satire that we did, and I think it was based on the Inspector General, which was Russian satire. That was another fun one to do. But I think that lost episode, if you like literally go to YouTube and search Moliere, Imaginary Invalid, Wishbone, I think you can find that episode out there somewhere. Most people never got to see it, but I maintain it was one of the finest ones we ever did. Thank you, Stephanie, for your question.
I'm gonna have to find it after this interview. I'm gonna be watching it. All right, we want to be mindful of your time. I just have one last question. I would be remiss to not ask it, since we are kind of a toy and collectible show. Do you collect anything?
Oh boy, I collect stories. I'm Irish. My mom's parents were Irish. I actually, for the longest time, when I would spend summers with my grandparents, I would just start to talk the way they talked, and I just thought it was normal. It was completely normal. But I briefly, when I was a teenager, I collected comic books. But I never really got serious into it the way a lot of people do. Doing this now, I stayed away from cons and appearances for years because of my twin dislikes of crowds and people. But, once I decided to jump into it, I decided to get all the way into it. And the culture is fascinating. just the Funko Pop culture, for example. I'm learning a lot all the time from everybody that I talk to, which is interesting because I am, during that process, collecting my stories. So I will have tales to tell from this experience that I will take back to Texas with me, and I will tell my friends, and we'll sit around and, shoot the stuff and gab and talk. And that's really what I collect. And I tend to be an experiential person. So I love to travel with my wife and my family. I love to collect stories when we're traveling. The experience of something to me is always longer lasting to me than having a thing. And I realize it's not that way for everybody, and that's fine. I mean, it's, everybody does their own thing, and I think that's cool. That's just how it is for me. But I definitely collect stories, and I have a tendency to be able to remember them. And because I'm Irish, I also have a tendency to embellish them. So I do feel like they get better every time I tell them.
That's nice. That's nice. Well, before you go, do you mind signing one of the Funko Pops, just so our customers know that you're there, you're signing the pops?
Yeah. Let me get Dahveed real quick,
Yeah.
because he didn't really prepare me for that.
Okay.
But let me go. So just guys, I'm gonna leave.
We'll wait.
Just for a second.
All
just
righty.
for a second, and I'll be right back. I
All
promise. Right. In fact, here's someone to keep you company. Wait.
Oh, there you go.
Well, you can barely see the top of his head, but I promise
you can see the head
he's
a
right
little
there.
bit. Yeah,
there
you go.
Okay.
There you go.
I'm leaving him right there. I'll be right back.
All right. Well, that is awesome, folks. So anyway, if anybody is out at Pasadena, California, they want to meet Larry, share some stories or anything like that, or get a photo sign or get a collectible sign, get one of those really cool spinner Funko Pops and get it signed, be sure to drop by Odyssey Games in Pasadena. So yeah. Oh, there you go.
All right, you guys, here we go. That is awesome. Okay. So this, of course, has the Chalice collectibles on it, and it also has the Toyzilla. This one is number 21 of only 50. So here is we're gonna do this. I'm going to get my paint pen, and okay, there.
Oh, you can put it down and sign them. You can put it down and sign it if you want.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And then what they usually ask me to do after I sign it, and I think it's funny that they ask me, will you also write spinner underneath? Because it also says spinner on the box. And if you know the show, then you know who that is. But yes, spinner. So, as Mike said, we're here at Odyssey, and that is what a signed spinner Funko Pop looks like. Some of these, we can also do like a little quote on the side if you want, but if you don't, that's fine. We'll just do it like that. Mike, thank you so much for having me on, man. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Do you have any projects or upcoming stuff that you want to plug?
Right now, we are smack dab in the middle of a new anime that I didn't know was super popular, but apparently it is. It's called Trigun Stampede.
Oh, yeah.
I play the evil Dr. Is it Carson? I can never remember his name. He's just really a bad man. Oh, yeah, there you are. Anyway, again, playing a bad guy, having a great time with it. I'm going to be, I think I'm going to be in the middle of June. I'm going to be in Claremore, Oklahoma at Super Anime Fest. The weekend after that, I'll be at Pop Gun, which is going to be a pop-up anime appearance on the University of Houston campus, I believe. And then the following weekend, which is actually going to be the first weekend in July, I'll be at BACON in Pasadena, Texas, not Pasadena, California.
Okay. All right. And where can we find you on the internet?
Say again?
Where can we find you on the internet?
Oh, you can go to my Instagram, is Outlaw Larry. So that was my daughter's idea, and I can't change it. I won't change it. She thought Outlaw was cool. So Outlaw Larry on Instagram, Larry Brantley on Twitter, and also Facebook. I'm 56 years old, so those are really the only social medias that I do.
All right. And I'm, as always, Michael Pao, aka Mr. Kapow. You can find me all over the internet on my social media, which is usually at Mr. Kapow. That's MRKAPAO. Or my Facebook page, which is facebook.com/Michael Pao Does Stuff, because I do a lot of stuff, like my YouTube channel, Fantastic Tales of Adventure, or my Twitch channel, which is Mr. Kapow. And once again, Larry, thank you so much for being part of this interview. We'll let you get back to signing those pops. Hope you have a great day.
Thank you, my friend. It was a pleasure to meet you and to talk to you. Take care.
All right, take care. All
Bye.
right, folks. All right. So, yeah. As always, be good, be great, be awesome. Oh, and we're going to be rating our friend Ume Mejo.